Pull up a chair. I want to tell you a story about a man, a will, and a $3.4 million gap that almost no one saw coming. If you have ever trusted someone who did not deserve it, stay with me. There is a button on the screen if you want to subscribe, but we will get to that later. First, I have to read you one line. $14,000 a month for 25 years, payable to the estate of Eleanor M. Vasquez. I read that line at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in a county records office in Presidio County, Texas. The fluorescents above me buzzed the way fluorescents do in old government buildings, the kind of light that makes everyone look slightly ill. The chair I was sitting in was a folding metal chair, the kind that leaves a pattern pressed into the back of your thighs. The air smelled like toner and dust and a faint trace of someone's burrito from lunch. None of that mattered. I read the line 3 times before I understood what it meant. Then I read it a 4th time because I did not want to believe it. My hands were not steady. The attorney I had hired 3 weeks earlier was a small, precise woman named Carla Mendez. She did not waste syllables. She was standing behind me, watching the page. She did not say a word. She did not have to. We both knew what the line meant. We both knew who had been cashing those checks for almost 2 decades. Let me take you back. 18 years before I read that line, I was 14. I was standing in the back of a church that smelled like lilies and old wood. My grandmother was being buried. The pastor had known her for 41 years. He cried through the eulogy. I had not seen a man cry like that since I was small. My great-aunt Lupe had driven in from Tucson the night before. She brought a tin of polvorones and would not let anyone else touch them. My father stood at the front and did not cry at all. I noticed that. I have never forgotten it. I was wearing a black dress my mother had bought 2 sizes too big because she said I would grow into it. I did not grow into it. I have never been able to wear that dress again. It is still in a box somewhere in my closet. I do not open it. 2 weeks after the funeral, my Uncle Roy called a family meeting. He stood at the head of the table in my grandmother's kitchen. She had cooked in it for 40 years. It still smelled faintly of bacon grease and coffee and the orange blossom water she kept in a blue bottle on the counter. He looked at me. He looked at my cousin Derek. Derek was 21, fresh back from a deployment, and had not yet learned how to be soft in a room. He looked at my mother, who was his sister and who had cried for 3 days straight. He poured himself a cup of her coffee. He drank it. Then he said the sentence I am going to repeat, word for word, for the rest of this story. He said, "Your grandmother left things complicated, trust me. You'll get everything that's coming to you when you're older." I was 14. I nodded. I was hungry. There was pecan pie on the counter. I went to get pie. That was the last time, for 18 years, that I asked my uncle a single question about my grandmother's estate. 18 Thanksgivings. He would call vaguely, "The property is being managed." 18 Decembers. A $1,200 check arrived with a note that said, "From the estate, Roy." 18 years of my mother telling me to stop asking. "Roy's handling it. Don't disrespect him." 18 years in which I built a life in another state. Got married, got divorced, got laid off. Never once thought to hire a lawyer. I want you to sit with that for a second. 18 years. The number has weight. The number has a smell. Old paper, cheap coffee, Roy's cologne on Thanksgiving. I trusted him. He was my uncle. He came to my 8th grade graduation and gave me a card with a $100 bill inside. He taught me to drive a stick shift in his pickup truck on a dirt road outside Marfa in 2002. I killed the engine 3 times. He laughed. He said, "You'll get the feel of it, kid." I am not the hero of this story. The hero of this story is a document my uncle forgot to bury. It sat in a county filing cabinet in a county that did not digitize its records until 2016. He had been cashing mineral rights checks since 2008. He had 8 more years to go before the system would have caught him. He almost made it. He did not make it. What I am about to tell you involves a $3.4 million gap in a trust, a letter from his own lawyer begging to settle, a ranch I ended up buying back from the man who stole it. But to understand how it ends, you have to understand how it began. And how it began was this: a man in a kitchen looking at a 14-year-old girl and saying 4 words. "Trust me. You'll see." I trusted him. For 18 years, I trusted him. And then I read a line on page 3 of a document he forgot to file, and the trust died. 18 years. Let me show you what 18 years looks like, because the number sits in your head and does not move until you make it move. I moved to Denver 3 months after the funeral. I had finished high school, sort of. I had a job at a temp agency. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in a building that had once been a motel. The carpet was a color the landlord called taupe. I called it the color of old mustard. There was a fireplace in the living room that did not work. The week I signed the lease, I went to a shelter on Broadway and adopted a cat. I named her Receipt. I do not remember why. I think I thought it was funny. I was 22. Roy called every Thanksgiving, always at the same time, around 4 p.m. Mountain. He called from a 432 area code, West Texas, where he had always been, where the ranch was, where the money was, where I was not. I picked up. He said, "Hey, kid." I said, "Hey, Uncle Roy." He asked about my job. He asked about my life. He did not ask about the estate. He never asked about the estate. He talked around it the way a man walks around a fallen tree in the road. Present, obvious, something to navigate, not to name. After 10 minutes, he would say, "Property's being managed. We'll talk more about it when you're settled." I was 22. I was 25. I was 28. I was 30. I was still, by his definition, not settled. I do not know what would have qualified. I stopped asking. Every December, around the 15th, a check arrived, $1,200. A handwritten note on plain white paper, no envelope inside the envelope, just a folded slip. The note always said the same 3 words. From the estate, Roy. I deposited the check. I did not look at it the way you're supposed to look at a check that is supposedly your inheritance. I looked at it the way you look at a Christmas card from an aunt you do not know well. I cashed it. I moved on. I got married in 2015. His name was Daniel. He was a structural engineer. He did not understand the check. He said, "Once? That does not add up, you know?" I said, "I know." He said it again the next year. I said, "I know again." We got divorced in 2019, not because of the check. Because of the way I had been taught to live in a house where money was a quiet question no one was allowed to ask. Daniel did not know how to live in a house like that. I did not know any other way. My mother called every other Sunday. Her name is Carmen. She has a voice that goes soft, the way taffy goes soft when you leave it in the sun. She would ask about my work. She would ask if I was eating. Eventually, with a small, careful pause, she would ask, "Have you talked to Roy?" I would say, "He called on Thanksgiving, same as always." She would say, "Good, do not bother him, mija. Roy is handling it." She would say, "Handling it," the way people say a prayer they are not sure they still believe. I would change the subject. She would let me. Receipt died in 2018, kidney failure. I held her in the back of a cab on the way to the emergency vet. She did not make a sound. I cried for 2 days, then I went back to work. I do not think I cried for the next 3 years. I do not think I let myself. 18 Thanksgivings. 18 Decembers. 18 years of Carmen saying, "Roy is handling it." 18 years of me nodding. I had a job. I had a city. I had a life. The estate was a piece of paper in a county I had left at 22. There was no version of my life in which I flew to Marfa. There was no version in which I asked my uncle a question I had been told not to ask. I did not have a lawyer. I did not know what lawyers cost. I had a cat named Receipt, a fireplace that did not work, a check in December, and a mother who told me to stop. I want you to understand something. I was not the woman who got stolen from. I was the woman who was taught over 18 years to stop looking. Roy did not need to lie to me every day. He only needed to lie to me once, in a kitchen with a cup of her coffee. Then he let the family finish the job. I did not know any of this yet. I was 32. I had just been laid off. I had a severance check. I had a few months of runway. And for the first time in a long time, I had a small, quiet question I could not put back in the box. In the next chapter, I am going to tell you about Carla and the county records office and the line on page 3. The email arrived on a Tuesday. It probably did not matter that it was a Tuesday. I am only telling you because that is the kind of detail your brain keeps, even when you wish it would not. The subject line was, "Important update regarding your role at Cordell & Reyes." Cordell & Reyes was a content agency in lower downtown Denver. I had worked there for 6 years. I had been a content strategist. I had not been expecting the call. I do not think anyone ever is. Which is the point. The HR woman, I do not remember her name, which I am not proud of, asked me to put her on speakerphone. I did. She said the sentence that every HR person in America has been trained to say without blinking. She said, "As you know, the company has been undergoing a strategic reorganization." I did not know. I had not been invited to the strategic reorganization. I had been invited to write product copy for a SaaS dashboard that I was not allowed to use myself. She offered me 14 weeks of severance plus my unused PTO, a letter of recommendation, to mail my laptop, the kind of help that is not help, dressed up in a cardigan. I packed a small box. There was not much in it. A notebook, a coffee mug, a plant I had somehow kept alive for 3 years. I took the plant. I left the mug. I drove home at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday in a city I had been living in for 10 years. I did not cry in the car. I think my body was still working through whether to be angry or embarrassed. It picked embarrassed. I sat on the couch for an hour and a half. The plant sat next to me. We did not talk. The severance check cleared 2 weeks later. It was a real number for once. I looked at it the way you look at a number that has a beginning, a middle, and a clear, quiet end. It was enough to cover rent for a few months. It was not enough to start over. In my family's language, it was a little something to get you by. I sat with it for 3 days. Then I sat down and did the math I had been avoiding for 18 years. I did not call my uncle. I called a lawyer. I had never hired a lawyer in my life. I had a vague sense that they were expensive, that they sent invoices on heavy paper, that they had names like partners and associates and counsel. I did not know how to find one. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Then I did what I do not love admitting. I texted my ex-husband. I said, "Daniel, do you know a real estate attorney? Not for anything weird. For my grandmother's estate." He said, "I have a name." "Hold on." He texted back 40 seconds later. A number. And, "Carla Mendez. Tell her I sent you. She will take care of you." I did not know what that meant exactly. I called her anyway. She picked up on the second ring. She said, "Carla Mendez." I said, "My name is, I am Daniel's ex-wife." A pause. She said, "Tell me what you need." I told her what I needed. I needed to find out what was in my grandmother's estate. I needed to know what had happened to it. I needed to know if there was anything left for me. I needed to know without telling my uncle. She said, "I can do that. Can you come in this week?" I said, "I am free this week. I am free for the foreseeable week." She made a sound that was not quite a laugh. She said, "Bring coffee. Do not bring hope yet. Coffee first." We met on a Thursday at a place off Larimer Street. She had a folder. She had questions. She did not waste a syllable. Worth saying twice. By the end of an hour, she had my grandmother's name, my uncle's name, the county, the year of death, the size of the estate, and a long, patient look on her face I did not understand yet. I do now. She had heard this story before, more than once. She said, "I am going to pull the county records, the probate file, the mineral rights filings. That will take me a week. Do not call your uncle. Do not call your mother. Do not call anyone in your family. Do you understand?" I said, "I understand." She said, "Good. Then go home. Water that plant. We will talk soon." I went home. I watered the plant. I waited. I did not call my mother for 9 days, the longest I had gone without calling her since I was 11. I watered the plant. I read a book I had already read twice. I cooked a meal I had not made in years. On the 10th day, Carla called. She said, "I need you to drive to Presidio County. Bring a notebook. Bring a pen. Bring your ID. Do not bring a phone if you can help it. We are going to look at a piece of paper." I said, "What kind of paper?" She said, very quietly, "The kind that changes everything. In the next chapter, I will tell you about the line on page 3. You have already heard it. I will tell you what it cost me to hear it again." Carla and I left Denver at 4 a.m. on a Wednesday. She had asked me to bring a thermos of coffee. Almost nothing. A copy of the death certificate, a copy of the will, a single photo of my grandmother on the back porch in 2003, my ID, a notebook, and a pen. She had not asked me to bring hope. I did not bring it. The drive from Denver to Marfa is about 8 hours. We stopped twice, once for gas, once in Santa Fe for a coffee I did not drink. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Carla sat in the driver's seat and read something on her phone. She did not ask me if I was okay. I appreciated that. Past Las Vegas, New Mexico, the road tilts and the sky gets so wide you cannot find the edges. I grew up under skies like that. I had forgotten. The light in West Texas lays everything bare. It was laying me bare, and I had not even gotten to the courthouse yet. The Presidio County Courthouse is on the town square in Marfa. Stone from 1886, white columns, a clock tower that does not keep good time. Across the square, a coffee shop that does, a bookstore, a man on a bench who waved at every car. He waved at us. I waved back. I do not know why. The county clerk's office is on the second floor. The clerk was a woman in her 60s named Yolanda. Short gray hair, glasses on a chain. She did not look up. She said, "Help you?" Carla said, "Mineral rights filings for the estate of Eleanor M. Vasquez, deceased 2008. Yolanda wrote the name down. She said, "Box 412. Hallway behind you, third door on the right, the fan is on the desk." The room was the size of a large closet. One window propped open with a paperback novel. The fan was not, technically, on. It was making a sound that suggested it was considering being on. The box was marked with a Sharpie. Vasquez, E. 2008-2018. Carla set her coffee on the desk. She put on reading glasses I had not seen her wear before. She pulled the first file. I do not know how long we were in that room. I know the light changed. I know the paperback propping open the window was a copy of Lonesome Dove. I remember that because it was the only thing in the room that had nothing to do with my grandmother. It was also the only thing that had not been lying to me for 18 years. Carla did not say a word for what felt like a long time. I sat on the floor. I watched the fan pretend to work. I tried very hard not to ask. She had told me not to. I had agreed. Then she said, very quietly, "Come here." I went. She was holding a single sheet of paper. Dated March 12th, 2008, a mineral rights lease. Signed by my Uncle Roy in his capacity as executor. Countersigned by a man whose name I have memorized. I will not say his name in this story. It would give him a place in it I do not want him to have. The lease was for 25 years, a signing bonus, a monthly payment, a percentage royalty. At the bottom, in language so plain it almost hurt, the lease was payable to the estate of Eleanor M. Vasquez, distributions to the named beneficiaries on file with the probate court. I did not have to ask Carla what it meant. I knew. The way you know things you have known for 18 years but refused to look at. She turned the page over. The second page had a single line in the box marked monthly payment. $14,000 for 25 years. Payable to the estate of Eleanor M. Vasquez, signed at the bottom by my uncle. I sat down on the floor. I do not remember if my legs gave out or if I chose to sit. I sat on the floor of the county records office in Presidio County, Texas, and I read the line 4 times. I read it the way you read something you do not want to believe. I read it the way you read a diagnosis. I read it the way you read a sentence in a language you're only now realizing you have been reading your whole life. Carla did not say anything. She sat down next to me. She took my notebook. She wrote in small, careful letters the date, the document number, the page number, and the line. She tore the page out. She gave it to me. She said, "Take this. Do not lose it. Do not show it to anyone in your family. We are going to drive back to Denver. We are going to figure out what to do next." I said, "What do we do next?" She said, "We do not call your uncle. We do not call your mother. Not yet." I said, "Not yet." She said, "Not yet. First we figure out what he owes you. Then we figure out what to do with him." We left the courthouse at 5 p.m. The man on the bench waved at us again. The light in Marfa was the color of an old postcard. The clock tower had the wrong time. I held the torn page in my pocket against my leg. It was warm. I had not realized a piece of paper could be warm. In the next chapter, the drive back, Carla's office. The number I had been looking at without seeing. The drive back to Denver was 9 hours. I do not remember most of it. I remember stopping once in New Mexico for gas. I remember Carla asking very quietly if I wanted her to drive. I said no. I drove. I think I needed to. I think my hands needed to be doing something. I did not speak for the first 3 hours. Carla did not ask me to. She read on her phone. She made 2 phone calls I could not hear. She was precise about where she placed herself in the car. She did not touch my arm. She did not tell me it would be okay. I appreciated that. Somewhere past Raton, I felt a strange quiet. Not grief, not shock. The quiet of a person who has been cold for a long time and has just been handed a blanket they did not ask for. The quiet of a person who is about to get very, very angry and is getting organized about it first. Carla's office is on the 8th floor of a building on Larimer. The elevator has a small mirror in it that is supposed to make the space look bigger. It does not. The office has a wooden desk, 2 plants, a view of the parking garage next door, and a framed photograph of a woman. I never asked who she was. She did not volunteer about her own life. I respected that first. She put a sheet of paper in front of me 3 days after the trip. A single page, 3 columns, dates from 2008 to 2026, numbers from 14,000 to 23,000, labels that said, in every row, the same thing. Royalty payment, estate of E.M. Vasquez, deposited to account ending in 4471. She said, account ending in 4471 is in your uncle's name. It has been for 18 years. I said, how much? She said, I will show you, but I need you to sit down first. I was already sitting down. She said, sit down again. I sat down again. She turned the page over, a number at the bottom, a dollar sign in front of it, commas in 3 places, $3.4 million. She said, that is what has been paid into the account. That is what should have been distributed to you and to your cousin. That is what your uncle has not given you, beyond a December check, for 18 years. I said, I see. She said, I need you to actually see, so I am going to put the paper in front of you. I am going to leave the room. I am going to give you 10 minutes. Then I am going to come back. We are going to talk about what you want to do. She left the room. I read the number. I read the columns. I read the dates. I read the labels. I did not cry. I did not yell. I sat with the paper for 10 minutes. Then Carla came back. I said very quietly, I want to call my cousin. She said, which cousin? I said, Derek, the other beneficiary. He was 21 when my grandmother died. He is 39 now. I want to find out if he knows. She said, why? I said, if he does not know, I have a witness. If he does know, I have a co-defendant. I want to know which one I am talking to before I do anything. She nodded once. She did not smile. She did not say I was brave. She said, use the conference room, speakerphone, I will listen. I called Derek from the conference room, sitting in a leather chair that smelled faintly of someone else's coffee. He picked up on the second ring. He said, hey, cuz. I said, Derek, I need to ask you a question. I need you to answer it honestly. He said, okay. I said, when my grandmother's estate was settled, did you receive your share? A long pause. He said, yeah. In 2008, $400K, I bought a house with it. Why? I said, did you know there was a mineral rights lease? Another pause. He said, no. I said, did you know the lease was for 25 years, that the royalty checks have been going into a single personal account for 18 years? He said, what personal account? I said, Roy's. A long silence. He said, are you telling me what I think you're telling me? I said, I think I am. He said, I am going to sit down. Hold on. I heard him sit down. I heard him breathe. I heard him say, very quietly, Jesus Christ, Roy. I said, I am going to Marfa, with my attorney, with a deputy from the sheriff's office. I am going to read your uncle the line on page 3. I am going to give him a chance to do the right thing in front of a witness. Will you be there? He said, I will be there. I will be there before you are. I want to be there when he finds out I am in the room. I said, right, good. He said, are you okay? I said, I am going to be. He said, that is not what I asked. I said, then no, but I will be. That is what I am holding on to. I called Carla back. I said, we are going to Marfa this week. Derek will meet us there. She said, I will call the sheriff's office. I will call a forensic accountant. Bring the dress shoes. Do not bring hope. You are going to need something stronger than hope. In the next chapter, the drive, the deputy, the door, and my uncle, opening it, looking at me, and saying the word he has been saying for 18 years. Carla had arranged everything. She had called the sheriff's office. A deputy named Reyes had agreed to come with us. Reyes was a man in his 40s with a shaved head and the kind of mustache that takes patience. He did not introduce himself with his first name. He did not shake my hand. He did not say he was sorry for what I was going through. He said, Maine. Ma'am, the address is correct? I said, it is. He said, we will go in my vehicle. We will park outside the gate. We will walk up together. You will hand me the document. I will read it. I will ask your uncle the questions your attorney has prepared. If he agrees to talk, we will talk. If he does not, we will leave, and we will file on Monday. I said, that is the plan. He said, it is a good plan. Plans are not always followed. Be ready for that. Carla had also arranged a forensic accountant named Paul. Paul was going to meet us in Marfa that afternoon. He was going to go through the trust tax returns for the last 18 years. He was going to find the exact dollar figure. He was going to put it in writing. We left Denver at 5 a.m. on a Thursday. The same route, the same sky. I sat in the back of the deputy's cruiser this time. Carla sat in the front. I do not remember the drive. I remember Reyes driving exactly the speed limit. I remember Carla reading something on her phone. I remember the sky getting wider, the air getting drier, a hawk on a fence post that did not fly away when we passed. I remember thinking about my grandmother. I had filed her in a box I did not open. Now I could not stop. I remembered her hands in the kitchen. I remembered the way she said Mida when I came in from the yard. I remembered the orange blossom water, the tin of polverones in the cupboard that she would not let anyone else touch. I remembered that she had left me half of everything, because she had known, in a way I had not understood at 14, that I was the one who would have to defend it. The ranch is 12 miles outside Marfa, down a dirt road that crosses a dry creek twice, a cattle guard at the entrance, a wooden gate with a padlock that does not have a key, a long, low house with a porch that runs the length of it, a windmill that does not turn, a barn older than the house, 2 pickup trucks in the drive. One is Roy's, the other I did not recognize. Derek was sitting on the porch steps. He stood up when he saw us. He had not changed much since 2008, a little broader, a little slower in how he moved, the look of a man who had not slept the night before. He came down the steps. He did not hug me. He took my hand. He said, "You came." I said, "I came." He said, "I have been sitting here since 4 a.m. I said, "I have been awake since 4 a.m. He said, "That is the family talent." Reyes parked the cruiser. Carla got out. I got out. Derek looked at the cruiser, at the deputy, at Carla, at me. He said, "Are you sure you want to do this in front of him?" I said, "Yes. He has had 18 years of doing it behind closed doors. He gets today with the doors open." Carla handed me the envelope. I handed it to Derek. He opened it. He pulled out the lease. He read the first page. He turned it over. He read the second page. I watched his face. He went white. The kind of white I have only seen in people who have just been told something they have no template for. He read the line. He read it again. He looked up at me. He said, $14,000 a month. I said, "For 25 years. He said, "Payable to the estate?" I said, "Payable to the estate." He said, "And you did not get a distribution?" I said, "Beyond a December check." He said, "For how long?" I said, "For 18 years. He said, "I got my $400K in 2008. I assumed you got yours. I assumed wrong." He said, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry I assumed." I said, "I know. I am sorry I did not ask." He looked at the lease again. He said, "Where is he?" I said, "Inside. Carla has a list of questions. Reyes is going to ask them." He said, "I am going to be in that room." I said, "That is why we are here." He said, "When I see him, I am going to want to break his jaw." I said, "Then you will break his jaw from across a kitchen table, in front of a deputy, with an attorney present. That is the only way this works. After we are done, you can break his jaw in your own time." He said, "Deal." The front door opened. Roy came out onto the porch. He was wearing a plaid shirt and jeans and boots I had seen him wear my whole childhood. He had a coffee mug in his hand. He looked at the cruiser. He looked at the deputy. He looked at Carla. He looked at Derek. Then he looked at me. He said, very quietly, the word he has been saying for 18 years. "Hey, kid." I said nothing. In the next chapter, the kitchen, the questions. The sound a man makes when he finally hears the questions he cannot answer. Roy held the door open. He did not step aside. "Hey, kid, come on in. I will put on a pot." I did not go in. Reyes did. Carla did. I went last. Derek stayed on the porch. "I will wait out here. Send for me when you need me." Roy said, "You too, Derek. Come in." Derek said, "I said I will wait out here, Roy." Roy said, "Suit yourself." He closed the door behind us. The kitchen was the same kitchen, the same counter, the same blue bottle, except it was not the same. The linoleum was new, the fridge was new. The window over the sink had been replaced. Everything was Roy's now. Roy pulled out 4 chairs. He poured coffee into 4 mugs that had not been washed. "Sit. What is this about?" Reyes did not sit. Carla did not sit. I did not sit. Reyes said, "Mr. Vasquez, I am going to read you a document. I need you to listen." Reyes took the lease out of the envelope. He set it on the table. He began to read. The kitchen was very quiet. The fridge hummed. A sunflower clock on the wall ticked too loud. Reyes read the first page. He read the second page. He got to the line. He said, "Mr. Vasquez, do you recognize this document?" Roy said, "I do." Reyes said, "Do you recognize your signature?" Roy said, "I do." Reyes said, "Did you receive monthly payments from this lease?" Roy said, "I did." Reyes said, "Where did those payments go?" Roy said, "Into the estate account." Reyes said, "Which is your personal account?" Roy said, "That is how the bank set it up." Reyes said, "Who is the named beneficiary on the lease?" Roy said, "I cannot speak to that without my attorney." Reyes said, "This is not a question that requires an attorney." Roy did not read the document. He looked at it. The sunflower clock ticked. Carla wrote something down. I had known this man my whole life. I had not known him at all. A door opened down the hall. Footsteps. A woman's voice. "Roy, who's in the kitchen?" Roy said, "It is family." The woman came around the corner, in her 60s, short gray hair, a face I had not seen in 20 years. Roy's wife, Pat. She was holding a dish towel. She looked at Reyes. She looked at Carla. She looked at me. She said, "What is this?" Roy said, "Pat, this is the family meeting about the estate." Pat said, "We settled that years ago." Pat looked at me. She said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to read you a line from a document." She said, "I do not have to listen to you read anything. You show up here with a deputy and a lawyer. You think you're going to come into my house?" She turned to Roy. She said, "Tell her to leave." Roy said, "Pat?" She said, "Tell her to leave." Roy said, "Pat, this is about the mineral rights." She looked at me again. She said very clearly, "You greedy bitch. You have been taking from this family for years. You and your mother. You are not going to take anything more from us. Get out of my house." Derek was in the doorway. I had not heard the door open. He was holding a piece of paper. He said very quietly, "I am going to need you to apologize to my cousin, Mrs. Vasquez." Pat said, "Or what?" Derek said, "Or I'm going to step outside. I am going to call the county clerk, the newspaper, the sheriff's office, the federal probate court. I am going to tell them the executor of the Eleanor M. Vasquez estate has been depositing royalty checks into a personal account for 18 years. I am going to do it before lunch." Pat said, "Derek, you do not know what you are." Derek said, "I know exactly what I am doing. I am standing between my cousin and the woman who just called her a greedy bitch. I have been doing that for about 4 minutes. I am prepared to keep doing it." Pat looked at Roy. Roy did not look at Pat. Roy looked at the document on the table. The sunflower clock ticked. The fridge hummed. I picked up the lease. I folded it. I put it back in the envelope. I said, "We are going to file on Monday. We are going to ask the court to freeze the trust account. We are going to ask the court to remove you as executor. We are going to ask the court to find you in breach of fiduciary duty. We are going to ask for our share, plus interest, plus punitive damages. We are going to do all of it in writing. We are not going to call you. We are not going to yell at you. We are going to file," I said. "Have a good day, Uncle Roy." We left. Pat did not say anything else. Roy did not say anything else. The screen door closed behind us with a sound that was too small for what had just happened in that kitchen. In the car, on the way back to Marfa, Derek said, "I would have broken his jaw." I said, "You did not need to." He said, "I wanted to." I said, "I know." He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I am going to be." He said, "That is becoming your answer to everything." I said, "It is the only honest answer I have right now." In the next chapter, Paul, the forensic accountant, The man who found $3.4 million hiding in plain sight. We drove back to Marfa in silence. Reyes dropped us at the hotel. He said, "Ma'am, that went as well as it could have gone. He did not deny the signature. He did not deny the deposits. He will have a lawyer by Tuesday. Be ready." I said, "I will be ready." He said, "You did a hard thing today. I have seen people break in that kitchen. You did not break." I said, "Thank you." He said, "I am not taking that as a compliment. I am taking it as a fact." He drove away. Carla said, "He is right." I said, "I know." Midland is 3 hours east of Marfa, a town that smells like money and pipeline. Oil rigs sit on the horizon like a forest of metal. Paul Dempsey's office is on the second floor of a beige building across from a strip mall. The waiting room had a fake plant, 2 leather chairs, and a copy of Texas Monthly from 2019. Carla and I arrived at 9 a.m. on a Friday. Paul was already at his desk. He was a man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and a tie that had been knotted at the same width for 20 years. A small gold wedding band. A coffee mug that said, "World's Okayest Accountant." He did not stand up when we came in. He said, "Sit. I have coffee. It is bad. I am sorry in advance." We sat. He had a folder open, 3 highlighted columns on a single page. He said, "I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is the math is clean. The bad news is the math is worse than you think." He turned the page around. The first column was the date, the second was the source. The third was the amount deposited in dollars into account ending in 4471. The dates ran from March 2008 to March 2026. The amounts varied from $14,000 to $23,000. The total at the bottom was $3.4 million. He said, "I am going to walk you through this once, then I am going to write it up, then we are going to file it." He said, "There are 3 layers." He said, "Layer 1, the lease itself. $14,000 a month, baseline for 25 years, plus a percentage royalty that increased with the price of natural gas. From 2018 to 2022, the royalty averaged an extra $20,000 a month because the price of gas went through the roof. Layer 1 summed is $3.1 million. He said Layer 2, the signing bonus. In 2008, the lessee paid a one-time signing bonus of $300,000 to the estate. There is no record of that being distributed. I have looked. He said, Layer 3. The interest. The lease payments should have been distributed quarterly. They were not. Simple interest at the federal judgment rate, calculated to today, is approximately $1.2 million. He said, Layer 1 plus Layer 2 plus Layer 3, 3.1 plus 300,000 plus 1.2. Subtotal, $4.6 million. I am going to ask for $4.6 million. Carla wrote it all down. I did not write anything. I was watching the columns. I was thinking about the December checks. $1,200 a year for 18 years, totaling $21,600. I was thinking about my apartment in Denver, the temp agency, the plant on the windowsill. The fact that Roy had taken a number that was larger than anything I had ever imagined, and given me back a number that was smaller than anything I had ever imagined. And he had done it in a plaid shirt, in a kitchen, with a coffee mug, and the word, "Trust me." Paul said, "There is one more thing," he said. "I am also going to refer this to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The executor never declared the lease income on the trust tax returns. The beneficiaries were never issued K-1s. The trust itself was underreported by approximately $1.8 million. That is a federal offense. I have to report it. I would not be doing my job if I did not." He said, "I want you to know that before we file. What is coming is not just a civil suit. It is also a federal referral. It is also a state attorney general referral. It is also potentially a criminal indictment." He said, "He will lose his house. He will lose the ranch. He will lose Pat. He will lose everything he has built on top of the money he took from you." He said, "Are you sure you want to file?" I said, "I am sure." He said, "Are you sure you are sure?" I said, "I am sure, I am sure." He said, "Good. Carla will draft the civil complaint. I will sign the forensic affidavit. We will file on Monday. The federal referral will be sent the same day." He said, "It is going to be a long year. It is going to be a hard year. It is going to be the year you get your grandmother's name back. That is the only thing I can promise you. Everything else is going to be expensive and slow and infuriating. He said, I will be here for the whole thing. Carla will be here for the whole thing. Derek, I assume, will be here for the whole thing. He said, Roy will not. Roy is about to be very, very alone. In the next chapter, I will tell you about the letter. Roy's lawyer's letter, the one that arrived in Carla's office on a Tuesday morning in October, 3 months after we filed. The letter that almost broke me. Not because of what it asked, because of what it admitted. The civil suit was filed on a Monday. 3 counts. Breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conversion. Carla and Paul signed it. Carla signed on my behalf. I remember thinking, I owe her a great deal. I am going to try to repay it. The federal referral was sent the same day. The state attorney general was notified within the week. We did not hear from Roy. 3 months passed. I went back to Denver. I watered the plant. I did not call my mother. I did not call Roy. I waited. The letter arrived in Carla's office on a Tuesday morning in October. Carla called me. She said, We have a letter. You need to come in. I came in. She put it on the desk. The letterhead said, Pell and Crane, Attorneys at Law, Midland, Texas. The letter was signed by a man named Howard Pell, Roy's attorney for 31 years. The letter was 2 pages long. The first page was a recitation of facts. The second page was the offer. The offer was this. Roy would pay me personally $2.1 million. Carla would receive her fees. Paul would receive his fees. Derek would receive nothing. My mother would receive nothing. The mineral rights lease would be transferred to a new trust, with Roy as the sole trustee. The criminal referrals would be withdrawn in writing within 10 business days of the wire. There would be a non-disclosure agreement. Nobody would ever speak of this again. The settlement would be filed under seal. The letter ended with a single sentence. Mr. Vasquez wishes to express his sincere regret for any misunderstanding that may have occurred. I read the letter twice. I set it down. I said, He is offering me less than half of what he owes me. He is offering Derek nothing. He is asking me to give up the criminal referrals. He is asking me to lie to the public about what he did. He is asking me to forgive him in writing. And the word he uses to describe what he did is misunderstanding. Carla said, Yes. I said, What do you recommend? Carla said, I recommend that you do not sign it. I said, I am not going to sign it. Mediation was set for the following month in Denver on the 18th floor of a beige office tower. We arrived at 9 a.m., Carla, Derek, and I on one side of a long table, Roy, Pat, and Howard Pell on the other. My mother sat in a chair by the window. She was holding a tissue. She had been crying in the elevator. The mediator was a woman in her 60s named Joanne, silver hair, a voice like a cello. She said, We are here to see if we can resolve this without going to trial. Opening statements, then questions, then a break. She looked at me. She said, Would you like to begin? I said, No, I would like Roy to begin. Roy looked at Howard Pell. Howard Pell nodded. Roy cleared his throat. He said, I am sorry for the pain this has caused. I made mistakes. I should have been more transparent. I should have kept better records. I should have distributed the income from the lease more promptly. I am willing to make this right, within my means, and within what is fair to the family as a whole. He stopped. He looked at me. He said, I am asking for your forgiveness. I said, I heard you. I will think about it. My mother stood up. She walked to my side of the table. She said, very quietly, Mija, please. He is your uncle. He made a mistake. He is sorry. Please let this end. I said, Mom, sit down. She said, He is old. He is not well. Please. I said, Mom, I love you. I need you to sit down. She sat down. She did not stop crying. Derek stood up. He looked at Howard Pell. He said, I need to ask a question. Howard Pell said, Go ahead. Derek said, Is there a non-disclosure agreement attached to the offer? Howard Pell said, Yes. Derek said, Is the non-disclosure mutual, or is it one-sided? Howard Pell said, It is one-sided. The beneficiaries agree not to speak. Mr. Vasquez is not bound. Derek said, So my uncle can say whatever he wants. I cannot. Howard Pell said, That is correct. Derek said, I am not signing that. He sat down. Joanne took a break. Carla and I stepped into the hallway. She said, Are you going to settle? I said, No. She said, If you do not settle, this will go to trial. Trial will be in a year. Trial will be in Marfa. Trial will be public. Your mother will have to testify. The number will be in the newspaper. I said, I understand. She said, if you go to trial, there is a chance you lose. I said, I understand. She said, are you sure? I said, I am sure. We went back into the room. Joanne asked if we had reached a number. I said, we have not. Howard Pell said, we have not. Joanne said, then we are adjourned. In the car, Derek said, he never said the number. I said, no, he did not. Derek said, do you think he will? I said, I think he will run out of money before he runs out of fight. I think his own lawyer will tell him to settle. I think the only thing that will make him settle is the criminal referral. I think he will try to keep the ranch. I think he will lose the ranch anyway. Derek said, are you okay? I said, I am going to be. He said, you said that before. I said, I know. I am still saying it. In the next chapter, I will tell you about the wire that arrived 11 months later, the wire that bought back the ranch, the wire that closed the door he opened 18 years ago in her kitchen with a cup of her coffee, and the words, trust me. 11 months is a long time to wait for a wire. I learned that. 11 months is a long time to wait for a number to land in your account. I learned that too. 11 months is a long time to wait for a man to make a decision he should have made 18 years ago. I learned that most of all. In those 11 months, my mother stopped calling. I did not call her either. I wrote her a letter. The letter said, Mom, I love you. I need you to understand what he did. I need you to read the documents. I need you to stop telling me to forgive him. I am not going to forgive him. I am going to settle. I am going to be whole. And then I am going to invite you to my house. We are going to have dinner. We are not going to talk about Roy. She wrote back. She said, Mija, I will come. Bring something sweet for dessert. I cried when I read that. I cried for the first time in 11 months. I did not tell anyone. The settlement offer came on a Friday. Carla called. She said, they want to settle. I said, what is the number? She said, 4.1 million. To you in full. No NDA. Public admission of liability. Filed with the court. Derek is released from any further claim. The criminal referrals are dropped at your request after the wire clears. The ranch is included in the assets available to satisfy the judgment. They are offering it to you for $1.2 million, which is the outstanding mortgage, with the rest of the debt forgiven. It is a buyback. It is a foreclosure on the version of Roy that stole from you. I said, yes. She said, are you sure? I said, I am sure, I am sure. The wire cleared on a Tuesday. $4.1 million. From an account ending in 4471, the same one that had been cashing royalty checks for 18 years. To my account, in a bank in Denver. I sat in my apartment. I looked at the screen. The screen had a number on it. The number was larger than anything I had ever seen in my life, attached to my name. I did not celebrate. I did not call anyone. I watered the plant. I called Carla. I said, it is here. She said, good, now buy the ranch. Now go home. Pausa. I drove to Marfa. Carla drove with me. The same route, the same sky, the same dirt road, the same cattle guard, the same gate, but the padlock was off. The house looked different. The trucks were gone. The windmill was still not turning. I walked up the porch steps. I put my hand on the wooden rail. I opened the screen door. I walked into the kitchen. The kitchen was the same kitchen, the same counter. The blue bottle of orange blossom water was not on the counter anymore. Pat had taken it. I put my plant on the counter. I put a bottle of orange blossom water next to the plant. I had brought it from Denver. I had bought it in March in a small shop on Broadway, the week I had signed the wire. Pausa. I want to sit with you for a second. I want to say thank you. Thank you for staying with me through this. Thank you for sitting with me on the floor of a county records office, at a kitchen table in a mediation room, on a porch in Marfa. If you have ever trusted someone who did not deserve it, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. I will read everyone. And if you want more stories like this, there is a button on the screen. Subscribe. We will be back next week with another one. But I want to leave you with the last thing, the thing I have been holding on to for this whole story. I am sitting in my grandmother's kitchen. The wind is moving through the screen door. The light in Marfa is the color of an old postcard. The clock tower in the square has the wrong time. I am not 14 anymore. I am 33. I have a plant on the counter. I have a bottle of orange blossom water next to it. I have a number in the bank that took 18 years to land. I have a cousin named Derek, who is now my brother in a way that has nothing to do with blood. I have a mother who is coming for dinner and who is bringing dessert and who is not going to talk about Roy. I am not forgiving him. I am not forgiving him. I want to say that twice, so you hear it the way Carla says things twice when she means them. I am not forgiving him. I am closing the door he opened. I am locking it. I am putting the key in my pocket. I am keeping the orange blossom water. The wind moved, the screen door closed, the clock tower had the wrong time. I sat at the table. I did not wait for pie. The wire cleared on a Tuesday. $4.1 million. From an account ending in 4471, the same one that had been cashing royalty checks for 18 years, to my account, in a bank in Denver. I sat in my apartment. I looked at the screen. The screen had a number on it. The number was larger than anything I had ever seen in my life, attached to my name. I did not celebrate. I did not call anyone. I watered the plant. I called Carla. I said, "It is here." She said, "Good. Now buy the ranch. Now go home." I drove to Marfa. Carla drove with me. The same route, the same sky, the same dirt road, the same cattle guard, the same gate, but the padlock was off. The house looked different. The trucks were gone. The windmill was still not turning. I walked up the porch steps. I put my hand on the wooden rail. I opened the screen door. I walked into the kitchen. The kitchen was the same counter. The blue bottle of orange blossom water was not on the counter anymore. Pat had taken it. I put my plant on the counter. I put a bottle of orange blossom water next to the plant. I had brought it from Denver. I had bought it in March in a small shop on Broadway the week I had signed the wire. I want to sit with you for a second. I want to say thank you. Thank you for staying with me through this. Thank you for sitting with me on the floor of a county records office, at a kitchen table, in a mediation room, on a porch in Marfa. If you have ever trusted someone who did not deserve it, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. I will read everyone. And if you want more stories like this, there is a button on the screen. Subscribe. We will be back next week with another one. But I want to leave you with the last thing. The thing I have been holding on to for this whole story. I am sitting in my grandmother's kitchen. The wind is moving through the screen door. The light in Marfa is the color of an old postcard. The clock tower in the square has the wrong time. I am not 14 anymore. I am 33. I have a plant on the counter. I have a bottle of orange blossom water next to it. I have a number in the bank that took 18 years to land. I have a cousin named Derek, who's now my brother in a way that has nothing to do with blood. I have a mother who's coming for dinner and who's bringing dessert and who's not going to talk about Roy. I am not forgiving him. I am not forgiving him. I want to say that twice, so you hear it the way Carla says things twice when she means them. I am not forgiving him. I am closing the door he opened. I am locking it. I am putting the key in my pocket. I am keeping the orange blossom water. The wind moved. The screen door closed. The clock tower had the wrong time. I sat at the table. I did not wait for pie.